Hey, welcome to Amazing Greats, my friends. This is Rick Hansen, and another great episode. And in the next few minutes, you'll hear the inspiring story of a woman who was a computer coder before most of us even knew what a computer was. And then how that gift set her on a path to a very unlikely rise to prominence in a male-dominated industry. Breaking glass ceilings along the way, she was a superstar at Microsoft and became a vice president. But the Jesus story of 5 loaves and 2 fish became her call and her passion, leading her to a truly remarkable mission. It's all here and a lot more today on Amazing Greats. We are talking today. I'm so excited about this conversation because I've seen you talk in other scenarios and you are so infectious and so exuberant about what your projects are right now. I just love the idea of being able to share with our audience all of that plus more. Maybe we're going to give some more tidbits about your background, Eric. But let me introduce you. This Margo Day. Margo is just to kind of put a beginning to all of this. 31 years of experience in high technology. You've held several executive roles in Microsoft over the past 14 years. You were the 2014 Circle of Excellence Platinum Club Founders Award winner, which sounds great. I want to know more about that. You were the 2006 Microsoft Most Inspirational Women Award winner, and in 2012 was nominated for the Anita Borg Women of Vision Social Impact Award. You're the former national co-chairman of the World Vision National Leadership Council for Child Protection, and you were voted Microsoft Alumni Network's 2020 Alumni Hero Members Choice Award for your work in Kenya.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. All that. That's pretty cool. Let's start out. I'm curious about you. You really were kind of the glass ceiling breaker in the technology world, right?
Yeah. Right.
You started, first of all, somewhere along the line, I heard that in 3rd grade, you found out you were good at math. So let's start there.
Sure. Well, yeah. Actually, I went to the public schools in the Bellevue area and had just a wonderful 3rd grade teacher. Her name was Mrs. Belsvik, and I'm one of 5 kids. And just by nature, I'm an introvert. And as a little kid, I just, for some reason, was really, really shy. But I was good at math and science. And my 3rd grade teacher saw that in me. And she asked me to do a science experiment in front of the whole school during Parent Day when
Oh
all the
my
parents
goodness.
would flood in. And it was the volcano experiment. And many of your listeners probably have done it or have kids that have done it. And I I went home and asked my mom to help me figure out how to do this science experiment. And sure enough, I performed it in front of the entire school body, all the parents that were there. And Rick, it gave me such just a sense of confidence that actually I could take the things that I really enjoyed and do something with them. In this case, do something and in front of big audiences as a 8-year-old.
Yeah.
And so that really set for me this foundation of just self-esteem and self-worth. And so, early on and just in reflecting on my childhood and just people that have helped me along the way, what I know for sure is that when you speak positively into somebody's life, and especially into a little kid's life, that forms a plank that will influence them for the rest of their lives. And most times as adults, we don't know that really is the case. So I'm really indebted to Mrs. Belsvik in the 3rd grade.
Is she still around?
Well, she was around as of last year, and I'm 62 now. I finally found her through a friend of a friend who found her granddaughter, blah. And she has dementia. At the time, a year ago, she had dementia, but yet she still remembered her teaching days. And so I was able to express my gratitude to her granddaughter, her son, and then to her as well. And that just always really made me feel good.
So that was the birthplace of your kind of technology world, but that was well before technology was
Yeah.
even a thing, really,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So how is it that you first started out in the world of technology?
Yeah.
And yeah, tell us that story.
Yeah. I was going to a church that had a real mission focus, and I was 18 years old. And it was a church that several of my brothers and sisters were going to as well. And I had joined this church, and I loved this kind of outreach focus. And one day the pastor came to me, probably it was after a service or something, and he asked me if I wanted to learn how to code. And this is 1977.
Wow.
1977. And he had this vision. What the church wanted to do was to establish some medical clinics, actually in South America. And then he realized that in order to really do the right kind of medical work, you needed to have an electronic medical record. You can believe that in 1977.
Wow.
And so there was another guy at the church that we were attending that actually was a computer programmer. And so at night, it was myself and two other guys. We literally learned how to code, and started with these mainframe computing languages. And it was such a thrill because I had a purpose to it. Wow, I'm going to do something cool. And
Yeah.
then I learned how to literally create something from nothing. And I realized that I really could take to this whole computer technology thing. And so that's what got me started in my entire technology career. But what I realized was I'm a very focused individual. And I thought to myself, if I continue on a career of being a coder, I probably will never meet anybody because I'm always focusing
Yeah.
on my code.
Yeah.
And what I became really good at, though, was to be able to describe to people after listening to like what a business problem might be or something. I could then relate what technology and what a solution could be, and then how to actually bring that to reality. And so that literally is how I got started in 1977 in technology, learning how to code.
Wow, that is amazing. In
Yeah.
1977, I didn't even know, nobody really knew what a computer even was, right?
No,
That's
no. And then,
amazing.
yeah, and then I answered in 1984. I was living down in San Diego, and had been going to college actually, while I was working. And I saw an ad in the newspaper. So this kind of really dates me. And there was an opening for a new computer store. It was going to be a software store, and they were looking for someone to manage this store.
Oh, wow.
And so I thought, well, I know about computers, and let me go see. And so I talked to the person that was hiring, and it turns out this is one of these. I mean, God has been so prevalent in opening these doors for me in my life. He was an orthodontist in Southfield, Michigan. He bought a computer franchise in San Diego, California. Ultimately, he wanted to retire there, but he was looking for somebody literally to start up and run this business dream that he
Oh my
had.
gosh.
So I talked to him, and we got together, and he said, "You're hired."
Oh, really? Wow, that's cool.
And so,
Man.
so literally, I started then in the kind of the whole micro PC industry in 1984, and that was the beginning of my career.
So how did Microsoft come around then? At
Yeah,
what
just
point?
yeah. No, Microsoft came around actually 17 years later. So I had worked for several different companies and built up a network of people who knew me, knew what I could do, um, had a lot of just great experiences. And um, Microsoft was looking for in 2001 women who they could bring in to be senior leaders, because they knew that the culture really needed to change. And they really wanted to start to bring in, more of a diverse workforce and people who are very team oriented and inclusive oriented. And so through a network of someone who I knew, I got a call from a recruiter out of the blue, and they said, "We'd like to talk to you about joining Microsoft." And I thought, I don't want to work for Microsoft because, it's a bunch of men, and, I just think it's, all this male dominated stuff. But I thought, I don't really know anybody who's there. So sure, I'll go and interview. So I did. And I sat down with the then president of Microsoft US. His name was Kevin Johnson. He just retired from Starbucks. now.
Oh,
But he's the guy that interviewed me initially. And as we sat down, he said, okay, what is your vision of the computer industry for the next 5 years? So I whipped out a piece of paper. I drew out what I believed what was going to happen for the next 5 years. And he starts smiling. He gets up from his table, goes over to his desk, brings over a piece of paper. He puts it next to mine, and it's almost the same.
oh my gosh.
And so,
Wow.
so it just was like another one of these kind of doors that God was opening to say, this is probably a good place, for you. And
Just a quick
yeah,
jump in here. So in these two cases, you've already mentioned that God was there. Did you
yeah,
know God was there then? Was he a part of your life to the point where you knew this was a God thing?
yeah. I have known God ever since I can remember. My family tells me that, when I was 3 years old, I would stand up on the picnic table and outside and sing Jesus loves me, this I know. And God has, for whatever reason, so I don't have this big story of conversion at all.
Oh,
I have literally just known that God has been with me um for my whole life. And it's just been um you know been this unmerited favor that different people have just come into my life, and different doors have opened, and I've been willing to walk through them. And the going to Microsoft was one of those examples.
what were some? Okay, and I love that story because everybody's got so a lot of people have that conversion story,
Yeah.
where they were maybe in the church as kids, but then kind of drifted away, and then they found a real relationship with Jesus. So,
Yeah.
so it's interesting to share a different kind of way it happened in your life.
And
Tell
even
me,
and even with that though, Rick, so I grew up in the Lutheran church, and it was a very formal thing. And even though I knew God, in my church experience, God was in heaven and I was down here.
oh,
Even
okay,
though I felt like I knew God. Um, and it took my brother and my sister, they got involved in Young Life. And I remember they came home one time from a Young Life meeting. My brother Reed said to me, he says, Margo, you got to know that you can love Jesus and you can hear his voice. And I think I was like 13 at the time, and I was like, really? It's like, wow, that's what I want. And so, I mean, it took both just this personal relationship, a good foundation that I did get through the Lutheran Church, but then this reality that says each of us can we're beloved by God, and each of us can know the voice of Jesus and know him personally, and to have somebody say that to me, it just felt like my whole life just opened up in front of me, and my whole relationship just opened up.
wow, the aha Jesus moment when,
That's it. Yeah,
yeah.
that's the one.
Wow, that's cool. So let's. I hate to leave this because I love talking about this, but
Yeah,
we'll get back to it.
we'll get
I
back to
just,
it.
I still want to, I still want to talk about the challenges of being a woman in a man-dominated industry like technology.
Yeah, it was real, and it still is real to many extents. It's there are many times when I'd have the recommendation or the thing that I thought that we should do, and like no one would even acknowledge that it was a great idea. And then, I don't know, 30 minutes later, somebody else might say, some guy might say, I think we should do this. And everybody goes, yeah, that's a great idea. I mean, from that to really trying to figure out how do I build a network and relationship? Because what I know in business, and this is true in life too, but in business, you're the best colleague when you can really understand what your colleagues are trying to accomplish, and then to seek to figure out, can you bring value to them in what they're trying to do. It's the whole basis of empathy. But when you're in a male dominated area, and so you don't have the depth of relationship, because you're
Yeah.
not, I didn't hang out in bars, and I didn't do
Right.
much stuff like that. I had to figure out, okay, how am I going to have a relationship that's a value based relationship with my colleagues? And so in part, I felt like I had to work, twice or three times as hard as some people to make sure that
You were
people
noticed.
notice and that I'm insightful. And then I'll tell you what, I did take up the sport of golf.
Oh, wow.
Because in the technology industry at that time, there were a lot of golfing events. And as the one woman executive amongst all of these other either customers or business partners, execs who are men, I had to be able to like stand up on the golf course. And so
So rather
I
than
learned how to play golf.
rather than hang out in bars, you chose to hang out on the golf course.
Hang out on the golf course. And fortunately, I could hit my drive about 200 yards straight.
No way.
Seriously. And,
Wow.
and so people wanted to play with me. And so I was like, all right, this is going to work.
That's an amazing story that I had not heard about you. So the golf piece is all new and exciting. And do
Yeah,
you play golf today? Still playing golf?
I do actually. And I can still hit the ball about 200 yards, 220 straight down the fairway. And so people still want to play with me.
Yeah, I want to play with you.
Great, let's go.
So cool. So then, so you actually elevated yourself to a vice president. But before we do that, you took the year of 2009 was a kind of a pivotal year for you because you decided to take a vacation that turned into a whole lot more than just a vacation. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So I was 50 at the time, and I could really feel God was stirring in my soul in a way that He hadn't done before, and He really wanted me to step out in faith and help people. And up until this point, I had done a lot of charitable donations. I mentored a lot of women. If you can imagine that would be the case to help women really figure out how to thrive in this environment. And but boy, was God stirring around in my soul. And this is actually right when the Great Recession was starting as well, if you remember that.
Oh,
And
yeah.
context is really important because I knew that I had done well financially, and God was kind of calling on me to say, "Are you willing to put it all on the line?" And so I started wrestling with Him. Okay, Lord, I want to be obedient. I want to do what you want me to do. You want me to step in and fill needs for vulnerable people. I know that's going to take a lot more money than what I have. So I think maybe what you're calling me to do is to take that next huge job at Microsoft. Pray, pray, pray. I heard nothing, Rick, like crickets.
Hmm.
So then I thought, okay, I'm not thinking big enough. I ideas for 3 different businesses at the time. I thought, all right, I'm gonna have to start up 3 businesses and take that big job at Microsoft, right, Lord? Is that what you want me to do? Crickets. Meanwhile, my soul is stirring around, and He is stirring in my soul, and I don't have peace, and I know that He wants me to step out in faith, and I don't have a clue what to do. So then I'm like, okay, I must be called to start 5 businesses. I don't know the other 2. Seriously, this is all true. And this went on for 9 months. 9 months. And then finally one day, I don't know what I was doing. I was at home. It was probably a weekend. And God spoke into my spirit, and He said, 5 loaves and 2 fish. What you have is enough. And the peace that came over me, I liken it's unlike something I've ever experienced. And I liken it almost to standing underneath a waterfall that's just pounding down on you. I mean, this peace was all over me. And I just knew then. I didn't have a clue what God was calling me to do, but I knew that I would know.
You didn't have to go to 7 businesses and
No, I didn't have to go to 7 businesses. So that was good. But what I did know, so my younger brother actually was working at World Vision at the time, and I thought, they're an organization that shows God's love to anybody that they work with. They don't proselytize. And I thought, that's what I want. I want to be able to show God's love through, and my faith through my actions. And so I talked to my brother. I was trying to understand what World Vision was all about. And I just said, hey, look, I really want to go. I feel like God's calling me to Africa somewhere. I don't know where. I think I really want to help vulnerable kids and vulnerable people. And so can you guys just arrange for me to go somewhere in Africa? I want to go there on vacation anyway, to go on safari and, go with the mountain gorillas. But I said to World Vision, we talked a little bit, and I just said, look, I'll give you guys 4 days of my vacation, and I'll go wherever you want me to go, and I'll see whatever you want me to see. All I know is that God is calling me to step out in a faith that I don't know yet. And I'd like to understand how you guys work and what happens when someone writes a check. And so literally they arranged this trip to Kenya in September of 2009. God had spoken to me in May of 2009. So now there I am in Kenya, halfway around the world, up in one of the World Vision areas that's about 250 miles northwest of the capital of Kenya, Nairobi. It's in the middle of nowhere. And they want me to see a clean water project. But before we even started, they wanted to do a devotional, which is what they do. That's how they start their day. It's beautiful. And so this Kenyan gentleman, he said, I was praying last night for this devotional, and God put on my heart the story of 5 loaves and 2 fish. And I wasn't much of a crier then, but I burst out in tears. So there I am. Here their guest is, first day on the ground, and I'm blubbering during the devotional. I'm like, I got to tell you what God told me in May, and I don't know what this means, but let's go see what you guys do.
Oh, wow.
And so we saw this clean water project, and it's a miracle of engineering what World Vision has done. And we saw the work that they did with people that have HIV and AIDS, and some of the economic empowerment work that they would do to help these people actually afford the antiretroviral drugs, that they needed to stay alive. I saw work that World Vision did with people who had pretty severe disabilities and who were basically shunned by the community because people just didn't want to own up to the fact that they could have children that were disabled. It's a cultural thing. I saw, people that were literally hungry, needed clean water, needed food. And so I just, this 3.5 days was pretty soul and heartbreaking. But I saw the good work that World Vision was doing, but there wasn't this connection yet. I kept praying at night, like, Lord, is this where you want me to get involved in? And just wasn't there. And so the last day I was there, they added at the last minute this visit to a school, a primary school, where there was a rescue center for girls. And so as we're driving out over these, rough, bumpy roads and stuff like that, I'm like, okay, what are these girls being rescued from? And that's when I learned the reality for many young girls in Kenya and other places around the world too, that they get married off when they're 12 years old. And their father receives a bride price in exchange for his girl's hand in marriage. But maybe equally as horrific as that, they perform a cut. They perform female genital mutilation on girls that are 8 to 10 years old as a prerequisite for marriage. So I just was like, what? This is the 21st century. How can this be? What? And so we go to this rescue center. There's 34 girls in this rescue center, ages 8 to maybe 14 at the time. And I'm like, every one of these girls had a story about running away from their home because they did not want to be cut and married off as a girl. And they had heard that there was this rescue center somewhere like way over there. And I heard these harrowing stories of these girls that had run away like the night before they were going to get cut. And, the community is chasing them and they hid but found their way, to this rescue center. And I'm hearing all this and looking into their eyes, and I'm 50 years old and I'm this, pretty successful white lady. And I thought to myself, I am not worthy to be standing on the same ground as these kids. Because I know that when I was 8 or 9 years old, had I been told that this is the culture and this is what you had to do, I'm pretty doggone sure that I would have not had the courage or the guts. I mean, this is when Mrs. Belsvik is, telling me that I can do a volcano experiment, right? Meanwhile, halfway across the world, their parents are saying that same 8-year-old little girl, you need to be cut. I just knew that I wouldn't have had the courage at that time to say no. And so I just thought, wow. And God put in my soul, he just said, this is your 5 loaves and 2 fish.
Wow. When I first saw you speak and you talked about the early marrying them off and genital
Mutilation.
mutilation,
Yeah.
to me, it was just like discordant. It's like, what?
Yep.
Why? How does that, just like you were saying, in fact, as a white dude in America, I didn't have any clue that anything like that was going on until you kind of brought it to my attention. And it's hard to talk about because it's so ugly. It is so horrible,
Yeah.
That's what I love about you is you're standing up and saying, this is happening and something's got to be done about it. So, but after that trip, you came back to Microsoft for a while, right? And that's actually when they made you a vice president in charge of U.S. educational programming or whatever. Is that what happened then?
Yeah. So as I came back and, what was necessary, the first thing that was necessary was to actually build a secondary school, high school for girls, because there were none in this area at all, because every girl had been married off by the time she's 13 years old. And so now we've got girls in a rescue center that were basically effectively orphaned, right? And so what was going to happen to them if they weren't educated? They'd have to go back to their communities and not only get cut, but probably a lot worse. And so it's like, okay, what does it cost to build a school? I was like, what does it cost? And so we built a school. And as I came back to Microsoft, the World Vision said it's going to cost about $400,000. And I said, they asked me if I'd fund half of it. And I said, yes. And if I need to, I'll fund the whole thing. But as I came back to Microsoft, and this is the beauty of working at a company like Microsoft, because they have this giving campaign where Microsoft will match financially people's gifts up to $15,000. And so all these people started to say, well, can I help? Can I contribute? Can I help? And so we raised the $400,000, just like that. And so we created this school. And what we started to see, Rick, was the many more families that had girls of basically marriage age were choosing not to marry their kids, but instead they were sending them to this school. And so the school started with, remember, there's 34 in the rescue center, only 14 of them were graduating from primary school. So I thought, okay, we're going to build a secondary school, there'll be 14 kids there. Nope. Year 1, there were 61. Year 2, there were 147. Year 3, there were 232. I mean, we hit this need and this tipping point. And at that point, I just knew that World Vision was going to want to scale what was happening here. So in that context, then in 2010, I took a year off. I took a year sabbatical from Microsoft, unpaid. First 60 days were paid, forfeited my job to do that. And then coming back from this. And we visited all these different communities that had the same need. So coming back, Microsoft really wanted me to, rejoin if we could find the right job. And the job that I was being encouraged to take was to be the vice president of US education, to help Microsoft understand what the company needed to do in order to really help accelerate the learning environment in K-12 and higher ed. And could Microsoft products be part of that now digital transformation that needed to happen in education? And so they were kind of asking me to think about the US market, figure it out with a group of people. And so I was like, okay. And I said, look, I don't know anything about the education market. Like, I went to school, I went to college, but I don't know anything about the market. And my boss at the time said, yeah, but you know something, what you've got is a whole lot of passion about education and what it can do when it's done right. And you've got a way to help us really figure out like what we need to do. And so I thought, okay, let me give this a shot. Yeah. And so I spent 6 years ultimately in that role, and then won a few awards based on the work that we had done as a team.
And that goes back to Mrs. Belkirk?
Belsvik. Mrs. Belsvik all over again.
Yeah. That was a part of the foundation of all of what then became your reality, right?
It's true. It's so true.
Cool. So finally, then you made this huge decision to say, to walk away from all of that. Yep. And what was going through your mind then? What was the process mentally to get yourself ready for that?
Yeah, so I'd been in this role at Microsoft for 6 years, and we had done incredible things in the K through 12 market. And we were at the point where we really needed to, I knew what our strategy needed to be for the coming 4 years for higher education to really make an impact. But at that same time, World Vision came to me and they said, Margo, we would love to dream with you. And I'm like, okay. And they said, what we've created together over the last 10 years and the work, we were able to, through the work that World Vision does with education and economic empowerment and cultural change, drop the prevalence rates of child marriage and FGM from effectively 100%, Rick, to under 10% in less than 10 years.
Wow.
So it's a provable, scalable model. And so when they came to me and they said, we want to dream with you because we really believe we can take this now into every place in Kenya, all the different tribes that actually practice the same and get these same results. And I thought to myself, I asked them, I said, are you really serious about this? Like, are you guys really serious about this? And they said, yes. And I said, okay. I said, I've got a great management team at Microsoft. Actually, they don't need me anymore. They really don't. I've got people here who can step into my shoes and beyond and do great things. And I can step out. And actually, I can partner as a volunteer with World Vision to really help them realize this dream of eliminating FGM and child marriage, not only where they just work in Kenya, but this is happening in 30 countries around the world. And World Vision has the scale and the expertise to do this. And so I chose to retire early from Microsoft so I could devote my time to this 5 loaves and 2 fish calling.
Yeah.
And you know something, when you reflect back on what that scripture talks about, is not only that initial miracle, right, of 5,000 people plus women and children, they never count them, getting fed that day. Talk about no gender equality during those days, but because they never count them. But Jesus commanded the disciples to, after everybody had eaten their fill, to go pick up all the remnants so that nothing was lost. And there were 12 basketfuls. And the story ends there. But I believe that story is all about, there's a lot more now loaves and fishes that can be scaled. And the same miracle can happen again. And so that's how I've taken this project. Is this is now scaling into all the areas where World Vision is working in Kenya, to do the same thing. And so I'm helping them raise resource. I continue to be a major donor myself. I continue to travel there so I can assure people that, and if people want to come with me, they can, but just assure them that the work that World Vision is doing is right and good. And so that's what I'm giving my life to.
But you have launched your own foundation as well, right? Is
I
that
did.
separate from World Vision, or is that under the umbrella of World Vision?
It's separate from World Vision. And the reason why we launched it is called Makuno Project. And Makuno is actually a Greek word. It's only used once in the New Testament in Mark 4, when Jesus is talking about the parable of the seed. And the word Makuno in Greek means to cause to grow. And that's the Greek word when Jesus is describing the kingdom of heaven is as a seed, where we don't know how it grows, but it does. And so this is really all about what I'm seeking to do with Makuno Project is it's just another avenue to raise funds that then we literally pass through to World Vision to give to this Kenya Big Dream Project. I fund all the operation costs. So 100% of what people give literally go to World Vision. It's just another avenue and a way for me to reach maybe other people that World Vision isn't reaching right now.
So you answered some questions already. I was going to say, what does Makuno mean? And
Yeah.
now thank you for that. I had
Yeah.
no idea. I couldn't find it online what the word
Yeah.
meant, but
Yeah, it's used once, literally, Mark chapter 4, I think it's verse 27. And that it means to cause to grow.
and how big is that organization? Is it a group of people, or is it just you and your co-founder, or
Yeah, right now it's me and my co-founder, and then just a bunch of because we wanted to keep, we're not paying anybody, and then
yeah?
so
It's
we want to,
hard to get people on board without any money a little bit,
yeah,
right?
just
So
people need to, yeah, right. And so we're doing outreach through social media, through LinkedIn and Facebook and stuff like that, and being very transparent that every dollar that people give goes directly to the World Vision Kenya Big Dream, or there's an organization that World Vision is partnered with called the Global Give Back Circle, and they work with women in the developed world, so in the U.S., et cetera, who want to mentor vulnerable girls. And so there's over 200 Microsoft women that are mentoring girls in Kenya, a good chunk of whom are mentoring girls in this Kenya program. And it helps the girls then go on to vocational skills and vocational training after they graduate high school. And then some of them go on to college and university as well.
hmm, just amazing. It's God's math, it
It
doesn't
is.
make sense, but it's God has his own special mathematics. Exactly. From
Well,
16 to 32 to 64. Crazy. Yeah.
it's crazy. I mean, it really is. And here's what the other kind of part of the math, Rick, that I've found with God. So when I was 50, I thought I had a great life. Like on a score of 1 to 10, I probably would have given it a 95, maybe. I mean, it was just really good. Like a great family, great friends, great job, great career, travel the world, doing all kinds of cool stuff, right? Today, I can easily tell you my life is easily 100, if not 1,000 times greater. And my view of myself has gone from whatever my stature was, 5'7", to if a millimeter of a millimeter is too big. And the reason why is because this is God's work. Yes, he called me and he put something in my heart, and he calls us all to love our neighbors as ourselves. But the question is, do we do it? Do we actually step out in faith and show God's love in this way? And I have seen the glory of God in the eyes of thousands of girls. And I've seen the glory of the God in the voices of thousands of men and women because they have chosen to forego the old ways and to not cut and marry anymore. And they've been empowered to create a future for themselves that's far greater. And they all know it's because God heard their prayers. He knows their every thought. He's counted every hair on their heads. And I've seen that firsthand. And I'll tell you what, I mean, I'm not worthy of that. But yet, I mean, that's God's math, right?
Yeah.
And so it all glory and honor belong to God and the King. And, you know, this might seem like a big story to people, but it starts with one act. And the other part of the math in God's economy is there is no such thing as a big miracle or a small miracle. There is no such thing as someone doing something so big that somebody else would say, oh, I could never do that. Think of the widow's mites. When the widow came and gave her 2 mites, that's what Jesus honored. And so, as opposed to the Pharisees and the scribes giving everything and then, touting themselves and all that sort of thing. And so, I tell you what, I know a humility that I never dreamed I would know. And I wouldn't trade that for anything.
Hmm. Wow. 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 It's you are so inspiring, and you've got such a great message, and what you're saying is so true. Everybody, there's going to church. That's one thing, I guess, and it's a good thing. People go to church, but it is nothing compared to doing God's work.
Yeah.
And somebody told me once, and I keep flashing back on it. They said, God can't drive a parked car. So so you need to go out and do something, then he'll join in and he'll make it work. So yeah, that's so cool. I have to ask this question. It's after all this wonderful discussions we've had and all of the great things you've just told me, I always have to ask the question: has there been uh, along your journey a God or a God challenge where you said, where is God, in all of this, that he should, of course, you did tell a little story about your own life and you were praying for guidance and weren't getting it. But is there any other time in your life that you can say, boy, I was really struggling with this?
Yeah. And I would say it's pride and ego. And because let's face it, Microsoft is, well, as of today, they're the number one company in the world that people want to work for, literally. Um, it's a company that does amazing work and amazing things. And through my career there, I had the opportunity to have senior level roles and did amazing things. Problem with that is you start believing in your own strength and in your own knowledge. And quickly, what can happen is you can develop an ego and you can develop a pride, and it's insidious. I will tell you that. And I remember one time, this was 2008, 2009. It was before all this. I remember looking at myself in the mirror one day, and I just thought to myself, I actually don't know who you are. And I don't think I like you very well. Because I just didn't feel like I was, for some reason, and no, I've told this story a number of times to people who know me. And people would look at me like, what are you talking about? Like, you have always been pretty much the same. But man, I'll tell you what, Rick, inside I knew I was not. And I knew that I don't know, man, I just felt like there was a pride that look at what I've done and look at this and all this. And I took a trip to go see some dear Christian friends that I've known since I was 13. And I got off the airplane and first thing I said besides hello was, I need your prayers. and I need your prayers for humility. And so that has been such a great lesson for me through all of this, to really realize that, and it's actually why kind of my struggle with God was so funny now. It was terrible going through it. But because there I was in my own mind, trying to figure out what God was trying to have me do. And I had all these great ideas. But what I wasn't doing was approaching this call with childlike faith. And so to this day, so was that a challenge for me? Yes. So to this day, I'm on my knees a lot, just as an act of contrition, because this really is God's mighty work. It really, really is. That's one, and then the other one is, I mean, like the project that World Vision is doing right now is $30 million. And when they said to me, we want to dream with you, and we started doing the math on what this first project would be, I just looked at them. I said, look, if I had $30 million, I would write a check for you right now, but I don't. This is what I got. And so I would dream up ways to, and I'd get scared. Like, how in the heck are we ever going to raise? And here I am, I'm just a volunteer, but there's girls' lives on the line here. And if we don't raise it, these kids are going to get cut. And I remember I was driving down to World Vision we were strategizing about something. And I was going down, if people are in the Seattle area, they'll know Highway 167 South, heading down to Federal Way, and thinking about all this. And I'm all stressed out. And how's this ever going to happen? I bet it won't. And what am I going to do? And, like it's all mine, right?
Yeah.
So dumb. God said to me as I'm driving, he goes, I have cattle on 1,000 hills. All right, stop. Okay. Lord, I lay this down and this is yours. So our human nature is always going to continue to get in our way, Rick, and to have grace with ourselves for that, or grace for one another as different people are going through these things. His grace is sufficient for us.
Yeah. Man, well, I think I could talk to you probably the rest of the day about all of this great stuff. And you are such a great person and fun to be with. So, but I got to wrap this up. So I just want to thank you so much and ask specifically how our audience can support what you're doing. Can you direct them in how to go about doing that?
Yeah. So two ways. Prayers, for sure. That prayers are huge and they're effective. So prayer. If people want to give, you can either go to mekunoproject.org, MEKUNO project.org, and we have a donate page, and just know that 100% of what you give will go straight through. Or if you prefer to give to World Vision directly, just do a quick search and type in Kenya Big Dream. Kenya Big Dream. And it'll take you to a World Vision page. You can read more about the project. And if you feel like you want to be able to give, you can donate on that page as well.
Absolutely great. Thank you so much. And keep us in the loop. If you got stuff going on that we can help with, I always do updates on our previous guests. Okay. So that if you've got something new going on that you want to just shoot me an email, or if it's on Facebook, I'll find it, or however you do social media. But Margo, thank you so much for being here with us today. And I really, really appreciate your time.
Well, Rick, thank you so much. And God bless you and your audience.
God bless you too. Wow. Thanks for taking some time with us on Amazing Greats today. If Margo's story and her infectious passion touched you in today's episode, please share it with a friend. Whenever you hit the like button or subscribe, it helps grow our audience and allows us to share these stories with many more along the way. As always, thanks to producer Clem Daniels and to our spiritual guide, George Tolles. Well, until next time, have a great day and go out and find what God has in store for you today. God bless.